don't even know if we should play this Chris Christie thing. It's so freaking, like, first of all, who gives a shit about Chris Christie?
Yeah.
This is the problem with elevating any of these, like, never Trumpers. And he was never a never Trumper. He was 100% Trumper until he got screwed over and was called basically Trump's coffee getter or burger buyer or whatever his name was.
The thing that drives me crazy about this clip, though, is like, Christie does a thing which is kind of interesting that a lot of people are doing, which is like, oh, the Jan 6 is just like 2000 and 2016 thing.
All right, this is it. Let's play this. I know there's some relevance because this is going on, and this is like, this is for many years on this program, we've talked about not elevating the never Trumpers or the Republicans who are against Trump. I'm not saying that you can't use them in specific instances. Like I say, the testimony from these Republicans, obviously, it was really important because they were the ones who were getting pressured. But I think it's politically effective.
But they're the type of tool you shouldn't worry about the condition of after you're done using them.
Without a doubt. Exactly. These you can leave out in the rain. But more importantly, people like Chris Christie or Bill Kristol or David Frum, even Jennifer Rubin, for that matter, who I think had probably the most sincere of whatever. They're not useful. The Lincoln Project, not useful. The Lincoln Project is a comms department for a certain group within the Republican Party, hoping to be the ones who emerge from this period of tumult, but are also helpful in making sure that that group of Republicans keeps getting paid. They created, they're a comms department. It's nice to watch your favorite cable television show and feel like this must be true because the Republicans are saying it. No, it's not true because of the Republicans. It's true because it's true. So that is, and the problem is that there's no reason for Chris Christie to be on TV anymore. The dude couldn't even get a sports radio job. Here he is on ABC explaining that the reason why we had January 6th is because some dude on, well, the internet didn't even exist in 2000. Some dude went and protested George Bush's inauguration. That's basically what he's talking about.
I hope lots of people across the country see and absorb.
That's the question, Governor Christie, because you're well aware there are Republicans in this country right now running campaigns right now based on what they said was a faulty election. In fact, there are Republican candidates in Texas saying that President Biden is not the legitimate president, that he's the acting president.
Well, look, David, this goes all the way back to 2000 with George W. Bush, when you had supporters of Al Gore who, even after Vice President Gore conceded the election and certified it himself as the president of the Senate, refused to accept George W. Bush as legitimate. You've had Hillary Clinton say.
Pause it for 1 second. What does that mean? Who is in a position to accept a president as being legitimate and who is not? Like, okay, I believed that election was stolen. I believe that the Supreme Court had no business picking up that case. In fact, much of the legal establishment also felt the same thing. I believe that case was wrongly decided, should have never been touched. This on top of the fact that George Bush did not win the popular vote. He won the Electoral College, sort of added to maybe some ambient quality to it. I believed that because the co-chair of his campaign was governor of Florida, the other co-chair was the Secretary of State of Florida, and she would not allow for the ballots to be elected. And you had a bunch of butterfly ballots where a bunch of old Jews voted for one of the most anti-Semitic, outwardly anti-Semitic candidates that we've seen in decades, in Pat Buchanan. There was a lot of question as to the justness of that. But here's how Sam Seder's, considering George Bush illegitimate, here's how it played out. In the same way that Sam Seder felt that the Golden State Warriors should not be champions of the NBA this year. Sam Seder, in fact, I probably had more influence on the outcome of that 7-game series by sitting in my apartment, drinking a little bit of rye, yelling at the TV that the officiating was bad, than anybody did in delegitimizing George Bush as president. It is completely wrong to associate those two things and to say that's why we're here.
Also, Sam, I want to ask you this because I wasn't around for it as much, but wasn't the Brooks Brothers riot maybe a little bit more like
there
like
was
that
exactly
than
there was the Brooks Brothers riot, which was a bunch of Republican lawyers in Brooks Brothers suits banging on the door of the election workers at Palm Beach, West Palm Beach, trying to count the votes, stopping the counting of the vote.
Yeah, that's why it's similar to 2000.
Exactly.
Accept the 2016 election results as legitimate. This is a very dangerous thing in this country, which was brought to a new level in 2020.
But I have to interrupt right there because you also know, Governor, Al Gore stood before the nation and actually conceded and did something very different from what we witnessed.
David.
Yeah, this is much
David,
different.
I didn't say Al Gore. David, let's be clear. Let's remember what I said. Even after Al Gore conceded the election and went before the country in the Congress and certified the election as president of the Senate, there were still many of his supporters around the country who did not believe that George W. Bush was legitimate, and in fact voted
100?
against certification in the House of Representatives.
2000?
What I'm saying is this.
That's the difference. Like, the GOP has made it an article of faith that Donald Trump should be the rightful president right now. Dems were like, oh, yeah, I think they screwed us.
You could not find... Hey, you know what? I'll tell you something. I think the failure of Al Gore to contest that election is why we have this today. The absolute opposite of what this bloated, both in mind and body and spirit, now pundit with his damn flag lapel pin, is saying. Because they didn't contest that, because they didn't contest what went on in Ohio in 2004, protecting the institutions and whatnot. No, it doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. I would love to sit down with John Kerry, who I believe had some serious suspicions about what went on in Ohio in 2004, and ask him if he thinks what he did was right by respecting the system, because it leads to this.
Yeah, fraud that leads to sending it to the courts so the courts can decide.
You do not respect the system by not holding people to account. Barack Obama gets into office and says we need to turn the page and move forward. It doesn't work that way. I don't know how many times they have to learn. It doesn't work that way. And I don't mean them. I know they do it for a different reason. But you'd think there'd be some them between these Democratic politicians and when you get to me.
Yeah, and it's across the board, too, in terms of issues. It's like you can draw a line between no accountability for what happened in the 2000 election, no accountability for the crash, no accountability for
you
the
could
war.
go all the way back to the savings and you go back to Watergate, savings and loans, and Iran-Contra, and but go ahead.
This is a disturbing trend and pattern that's been increasing in intensity from 2000 to 2016 to now to 2020.
I get what you're saying. I just
he also is skipping over 2008. there was a little thing that gave birth to Donald Trump, and it was called birtherism. And John Boehner refused, he was the House leader, refused to chastise members of his caucus who were introducing legislation basically saying Barack Obama's not an American. So yeah, I wouldn't go necessarily 2002-16.
Many of his supporters around the country who did not believe that George W. Bush was legitimate, and in fact voted against certification in the House of Representatives. What I'm saying is this is a disturbing trend and pattern that's been increasing in intensity from 2000 to 2016 to now to 2020.
I get what you're saying. I just don't want our audience to think that I'm not aware that there isn't a real equivalency here when you have a former president who is sowing the seeds of doubt in this particular election that we're looking at. I want to bring in Heidi.
Yeah, you're done now. But this is, you bring on these shills. That's what it is.
And like Muir really frustrates me too because his pushback is not adequate there.
No, it is not adequate.
I get what you're saying.
But at least Heidi Heitkamp will come in, one-term senator, will come in and really clean up here. Oh, God. We're screwed. We're screwed. I don't know what to tell you, folks. We're screwed.